Majority of the people just want to have a better quality of life. And a lot of the problems that we have today, especially now in our political environment, is talking about, let's say, automation, or, oh, it's the rich people's fault, or blah, blah, blah. It's, it's for votes. Everyone's, blaming fingers. For me, I view as, one, obviously there's always an educational problem. Education has to adapt. That applies for everybody. But if we're talking about finances, if we're talking about the economy, if I'm talking about, for example, like real case studies, like my mom, right, or my brother, regardless of if my mom makes $60K or $80K a year, her buying power decreases every year, and it decreases a lot. It's not like simply 2%. 2% is just inflation, right? You get all this quantitative easing and interest rates. Next thing you know, it's like fucking 7% maybe per year. So it's like, how is a person supposed to live? So if you look at the buying power, it's lost 70% since the 80s. The same dollar you had in 80 is worth 70% less today. And so where does this go? You see the trend line. It goes to zero. This is why I'm not too big of a favor of all these government handouts. I'm not against the government, saying fuck the government. I'm against the monetary system that we have. It doesn't help regular people. And so it's like, how do we increase buying power? How do we increase, literally it's the buying power. If a person has more buying power, it helps the whole fucking economy. More people buy real estate, more people will invest, more people will spend. But that's not the case, as we know. In North America, Canada, within North America, it's $400 savings.
Average. There's a lot of people in savings also. Saving,
average, 400. Think about $400.
That's a slim margin.
Thank God we're in Canada. We have socialist healthcare system, not the best, but I get a broken arm, I can go ER. Like ER is good. When it comes to socialist system, ER is good.
Yeah.
Anything else, not good. I give credit for ER, like emergency related, like acute, like right now, I need to do it. Good. But preventative stuff, or like, I remember I had some like pains and I needed to go see what's the doctor called for like the liver and everything? Urologist? Nephrologist.
Yeah.
And obviously it's not life-threatening. It's not an issue. It's like 8-month wait. I'm going to get the fuck.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. They got to mete out like resources to like the most urgent things. It's pretty like calculating. I have some buddies that are doctors, and the amount of waste that's happening in the system. I mean, I'm amazed when they tell me, well, so who comes and sees you? And I have a buddy, he's like, 80% of the people are just there because they're bored and it's free.
Really?
Yeah. In one of the communities near here, I was like,
bored.
as an American, I've driven myself to the hospital, I think 3 times with like fractures, like bike wreck. I mean, multiple things like, and I appreciate healthcare so much that I don't ever use it unless I have to. Even I still think like, well, I want to conserve it for the people who actually need it. And I talk to my friends who are physicians, and the things they tell me, I'm just like appalled. And so I'm not taking a political position on it, but I just think in terms of like caring about, if we're going to really care about the society.
We have a broken healthcare system.
We're actually ranked the whole picture.
We're ranked pretty low when it comes to healthcare.
In what domain? I'm fairly new in Canada, so what is it like? The quality of it? Is it
it's the quality.
How it's distributed?
Quality and time waiting for something.
Who's good in the realm of social? Isn't the UK good? Or?
France, actually.
France is good.
They have a 2-tier system. They have socialist and private. So that's one of the trends in Canada, trying to people to push, is more private.
Was it Mayo? Isn't there a Mayo clinic here now that you could do private?
Yeah, listen, there's private, but it's not how you think it is. It's not
it's like pay for play?
It is, but it isn't. So there is a spectrum of what's allowed in private. Right? There's a spectrum. As opposed to the United States is like, whatever the fuck you want to do. Whatever you want to do.
Basically.
There's very strict laws of what is allowed privately in Canada. I mean, really, really strict. And so if we want to make a much better, and listen, dirty politics comes into play, bloated bureaucracy comes into play. Like there's a lot of factors for this. Sunk cost bias, incentive models. People don't want to lose their position, obviously. Nassim Taleb has a saying, like, the 2 biggest addictions is heroin and a fucking salary. So they got their, fat ass salary. They don't want to lose their position.
Yeah.
It's like you're trying to kill like a virus or something. So ideally, I like to model everything in nature. Like nature's the best scientist. She's been here for 6 billion years.
Quite some
like
time.
That. Yeah.
Like on Earth, but
exactly, about right? Mother Gaia, let's say.
Yeah.
And nature's about competition. And it's about conserving energy, right? And if we look at systems today, I'm a big believer in game theoretical models. And so if we only have one model, there's no competition. There's no incentive to improve anything whatsoever. And so for me, it's like, why don't we have a two-tier system? Let's have private. And obviously, if private's going to be expensive, I'm not here telling you private's not going to be expensive. Of course, it's going to be fucking expensive. And people that want to pay will pay. It's two parties are consenting to a transaction. Most Canadians that are looking for an fMRI or a nephrologist that I had to do, or some form of a non-emergency, let's say, test, they'll go to Buffalo. You pay it out of pocket, you get your results in 24 hours. Walk in, literally. It's like, how much? I don't know, a couple $100 for whatever it is, right? But imagine you had that here. You would create a more streamlined competition. And I see now there's even fMRIs. So somebody just created one for like new fMRI machine for $400,000.
That's like less than half.
I just saw it. Yeah,
that's cheap. The trend of lower imaging technology. I used to work in healthcare, and the invention in dentistry was they had 3D volumetric tomography machines you could get in office for like $250,000. Now they're less, but replacing basically a high radiation CAT scanner. And so a doctor could lease or buy this thing that would give you like 1/1000th of the radiation of a CAT scanner. And now it's available to the public. So technology, I mean, to kind of bring it back in, like technology is the great disruptor and the great equalizer. And so when you talk about nature, like there are people kind of on the fringes thinking about things, and those, whether it's the innovator thought, I'm going to create this X-ray machine, whether it's the fMRI machine that's cheaper or the X-ray machine that's much lower radiation in terms of microsieverts and cost, like that innovation is that competition you're talking about. In crypto, is that competition you're talking about. Like all the things that you're talking about kind of rope all back in.
DNA sequencing was like $10,000 when it first came out, roughly.
Now it's 23 to do like a full gene one.
Well, they don't do full gene.
Yeah, they do just like simple stuff.
Still, it's cheap. What is it, like $199?
Yeah, I don't know. Haven't done it.
I haven't done it yet.
Should we? Just maybe we're related. My dad's from Romania. Where are you from?
Former Yugoslavia.
Okay, probably not. But
yeah. I'm wary of doing it.
Yeah, I'm a little uncomfortable about it too.
I listened to one of my favorite podcasts lately is Hidden Forces. And let me pull up the last one right now. I'll send it to you afterwards. The latest episode was with Kyle Bass. And he was talking about the Chinese companies that do, and he mentioned 23andMe, that do majority of the gene sequencing for all these companies. And
they offshore it to China?
And they have all the data.
Oh, that's comforting.
Yeah, exactly.
He mentioned that publicly?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. And so for me, I'm like, and I still haven't done it. And I literally just listened to this episode. So if you guys are wondering, go check out Hidden Forces podcast.
I'm feeling you're never going to do it now. You could go to like a private lab, but
there's one in BC. So if I know for a fact, the BC lab, I forget the name of it, but if they're fucking doing it, if they have the machinery there, I'll do it there.
Yeah.
That's no problem. And it won't be under my fucking legal name either. It'll be John Doe. And I'll pay cash. Like, I don't want my name attached to that.
You're really into outpatient services, I say.
Yeah. I like privacy.
Yeah.
Like my goal in the future, like another way to make healthcare better is to have more interoperability of healthcare. Like even as an Ontario resident, it's very difficult for me to take, almost impossible to take my medical documentations from the Ontario government and to go to BC. It's very hard. Very, very hard. And so this is why, in fact, a lot of times why there is malpractice in medicine, in Canada per se, is there's a dissonance between communication between practitioners in different places. So like you go to one place or hospital, they have this data on you, but that data isn't shared over here. It's like the example of the United States, like CIA, FBI, you have all these different like agents, but no one fucking shares data.
Right.
It's kind of similar. Like they're not sharing data. So you don't have a cohesive unity of data. So
EMR has been around forever, but
Yeah.
it still is like archaic as it was when it was proposed.
Yeah,
Like,
super archaic.
So maybe there's a blockchain solution. Maybe there's something that can like share information better. It's really confusing to me.
Ideally, what I would like to see in the future is there's also testing too much creates like double negatives. It's not always good to test. There's way too many variables, right?
And testing can cause X-rays themselves are damaging.
Yeah. And also there's stuff like white coat syndrome. Just the very act of seeing a doctor skews tests because you're just anxious and nervous. And so what I would like to see in the future, ideally, is my dream would be a Star Trek tech where we have in-home units. So saliva, urine, the whole 9 yards. Right? Let's say a unit like this.
Yeah.
Okay. That unit has my data. This is a node. It's not related to my name. Let's call me like I'm a number, like number 12 or number 10. And it's encrypted, whatever encryption we want to use, like P2P encryption or whatever. And as a node, it's connected to an oracle. And the oracle is taking other nodes' information. And we can have some form of machine learning within these oracles that are doing pattern recognition. So let's say I'm using this machine on a quarterly basis, like a full thing. It can be like, let's say it does a Dutch test, it does all these metabolites of hormones.
So like a panel.
Like beyond a full comprehension. I mean like full hormonal panel, cortisol panel, everything. Like we'll look at like top markers that matters. Maybe like we can even do heart rate variability for that.
Sure. Your devices communicate with
exactly.
a centralized healthcare unit.
I have like an Aura ring that I wear. It shows my heart rate variability, my sleeping stuff. So we do this data aggregation.
Yeah.
And so basically, let's say I do it every quarter for like the big panel, but on like a daily basis, taking like small markers like heart rate variability, maybe my oxygen, etc. And then we have this oracle encrypted. I'm a number, but it's collecting a bigger reference sample pool of seeing patterns between other types of stuff. And let's say it sees something. It's preventative. I'm not looking for repair. Fuck repair medicine. I want preventative medicine. I don't want repair medicine. I don't want it before it's too late. I want early detection.
Yeah.
And so it sees something. It's like, oh, number 10 node, comes back to me. Ding, 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 ding. We see this.
Cortisol or whatever.
Yeah. And it doesn't tell you like, well, we got the fucking super protocol for you. What it does is we've located in this neighborhood practitioners.
So go pay attention.
And then this can become like lead generation for the practitioners to them. Because my wife's a doctor. I see it all the time, osmotically, just sitting there seeing what she has to do. It's like they spend a fucking lot of time just this test bullshit.
Yeah.
And they shouldn't.
Yeah.
They should be, doctors should be on the human side of things.
Ideally.
Tests should be for robots at the end of the day. People are bad at analyzing data. And now there are a lot of people who are, they might be out of business, like radiologists. Like you see they have machine learning for analyzing.
I had this conversation. So my wife's cousin, he's an ER doc.
Yeah.
And it's so funny. We're just out a couple of days ago and he had pitched a similar idea to one you just mentioned, which I should probably not mention publicly, but it was like similar thought pattern of like, hey, he sees just the amount of waste is really, really bothers him. And I think he's a smart guy. And he was thinking technology in a similar mechanism that you had described could solve some other problems that he sees on a regular basis that is just bad for everybody that they're handled the way they're currently measured.
Yes.
So I think that the fact that you're in parallel thinking with someone who is a doctor now, sees people like in near-death situations on a daily basis, like, and I imagine your wife is like a family practitioner where she's not
GP,
seeing people so this like convergent thinking is telling me that the technology is there. We're all pointing in the same direction. I think someone is going to crack it. I'm sure people are working on it. And so I could definitely set you up with him. He's a very entrepreneurial dude. And he has like ready solutions. He's like, I see this every single day and it drives me insane.
Well,
and this would be a way to solve
in the United States, they can do much better than we can over here. Unfortunately, in Canada, we have a high regulatory hurdle with our socialist healthcare system.
It's like worse than like the FDA, like or like the MAD or like the
Couple of reasons.
medical
One, it's a small country. Two, it's like the amount of capital and regulatory mental punishment you have to go through. It's not really worth it for Canada. Like it's easier.
Not even as a pilot. Like it'd be like not. It's not worth piloting. You need somewhere that's like a little more permissive
and a little bit more private because it have to somehow fit within our system. It can't be totally private. Like right now, there's very stringent laws of who's allowed to have access to your medical files.
There should be. I mean,
no, totally. But even you as an individual having access for them, for the longest time, this changed lately. It's really good that it changed. Like, for example, Life Labs is a popular lab over here.
Yeah.
You would have to walk in to your doctor or walk back to Life Labs to get your results.
You can't like get over the phone.
Phone, technically, it's not in the scope. Security reasons, phones aren't allowed. Even they still have fax days. Some fucking doctor's office will not use email. They use fax because it's considered more secure. I'm like, where do you get this shit from? I'm like,
maybe just a carrier pigeon would be the better way to do it, or like
I'm not kidding. Fax, man. Fucking fax is insane. Okay. And so, just recently, not too long ago, it was like, oh, thank you. Now I have email to receive my stuff. And so we're in the Stone Ages over here. And I think the only way that I see going back to using nature as an example, there's a great saying from whether his name was Gall, it's called Gall's Law, where no complex organism ever evolved from another complex organism. There is an evolutionary pathway where it's like simple organisms or a single cellular, then multicellular, then the cells get together, then it makes tissue and so forth and so forth. There's like a hierarchical level. It's not like, oh, boom, there we go. We got this thing, right? And this can be applied to anything. It's like, you can't just make a startup overnight and have $1 billion company. You know what I mean? There's a process, right?
Definitely.
And so we can't just come in and be like, healthcare system change. So ideally what would make sense where it's like, is there like a small town that we can run a pilot, as you mentioned?
I don't want to give away the secret sauce of this person because he works very hard on these things, but I would mention that there are foreign countries that have databases that are much more welcoming and permissive for these kinds of things.
Yeah.
For that crack, that would be so you have the software side and you have the hardware side.
Yes.
And then you have the regulatory side. So we were just talking about this and thinking, how would you launch something that would be, let's just say, stick with your example of preventive medicine.
Yes.
Like those are pretty difficult. I mean, just forget the regulatory for a second, forget the hardware, just the software of like machine. There's also a lot of hype around AI, and I think you know this, but I feel like whenever I hear that word,
too much hype. It's not AI to begin with.
I mean, it's funny. AI is what people have on slides when they're trying to pitch AI to somebody. Like even economists, we use regression all the time. That's in machine learning, but we don't like give it a sexy name. We just call it like ordinary least squares or panel data or time series. But like the public is like so enamored with this idea of AI, like it's loops or it's other.
I think
other
when
functions.
You sit down and tell people when people say AI today, so anyone listening, whenever anybody's saying AI today, probably 99.999% of the time, it's machine learning. Okay, but what is that? The most algorithms that you see online or ML is literally just pattern recognition. That's all it is. It goes from filter 1 to filter 2 and down the line it goes, recognizing logic, recognizing patterns.
Yeah.
There you go.
So it doesn't have wisdom, but it has the ability to move large amounts of data that a human mind would not be able to look at, like 20 million pieces of data. Like you have, put that on AWS and they can do that in like a split second. So I don't think AI is the penultimate solution. It is a tool. And going back to the radiologist thing, I asked him the same thing. I said, what about radiologists? Are they going to lose their jobs? He said, well, those that don't use technology are going to lose their jobs, which is true about anything. And so I think that we embrace technology versus trying to fight it. Like if it's better than human judgment, we should use it and be aware of its flaws, but we need to incorporate those things. I mean, but the thing is, that's just what people are like that. Whatever it is, they're resisting forward movement, whatever it is, because they're afraid or they're suspicious or whatever. And once those grounds are addressed, then I think that there's potential for things to evolve. The regulatory side, I think that if something's like political suicide, it's not going to happen regardless of how good it is for the public.
I agree.
And all it takes is one screw up. I mean, look at what's happening with autonomous vehicles. Like, how many people have gotten killed by autonomous vehicles? Like, there was the one accident, I think it was in Texas. How many people get murdered every single day by people? Like, your benchmark for perfection.
Per year is 1 million. I think it's like 1 million people die a year of car accidents.
Our benchmark is inappropriate when we're looking at technology. People think 0 is the appropriate number of mistakes, but like, that's not the right number.
No.
The right number is what's the current best thing that the current system can do. And if we're doing 1,000 times better than that with AI or autonomous, then